December 1st, 1948. On a quiet, windswept beach in Adelaide, Australia, the body of a man is discovered. He's well dressed, in a suit and tie, with polished shoes. There are no signs of violence, no witnesses, and no obvious cause of death. But as police begin their investigation, they discover a series of bizarre clues that will turn this case into one of the most baffling mysteries in modern history. Hidden in a small pocket, they find a tiny scrap of paper printed with two strange words. Tamám Shud, a Persian phrase meaning "it is finished." More than 70 years later, the identity of the man and the reason he died remains one of the world's most famous unsolved cases. This is the story of the Tamám Shud case, also known as the mystery of the Somerton Man. The body was discovered in the early morning at Somerton Beach, a calm suburb just outside the city of Adelaide. The man was lying with his head propped against the seawall, in a position that witnesses said looked as if he were simply resting. He appeared to be in his early 40s, in excellent physical condition. He wore a crisp white shirt, a tie, a brown knitted pullover, and a gray-brown double-breasted coat. This was unusual attire for someone sitting on a beach, especially late at night. There were no signs of a struggle. No wounds, no bruises. The initial autopsy couldn't determine a cause of death. But one of the strangest details was discovered when his clothes were examined more closely. Every single label had been meticulously cut out. Someone had gone to great lengths to remove any identifying marks from his suit, his tie, even his socks. This wasn't just a man with no ID. It was a man who seemed to have been deliberately erased. Police knew they were dealing with something far more complex than a simple accident. Investigators began by searching the man's pockets, hoping for a clue, anything that could point to who he was. Inside, they found a few mundane items. A train ticket from Adelaide to the nearby Henley Beach, which he had never used. A bus ticket. A pack of Army Club cigarettes, but with a different, more expensive brand called Kensitas inside. They also found a narrow aluminum comb, a half-empty pack of juicy fruit chewing gum, and a box of matches. But there was nothing that revealed his identity. No wallet, no money, no identification papers. It was as if this man had walked out of thin air, a ghost with no past. Without a name, police couldn't even begin to trace his movements or find his family. The case seemed to be at a dead end before it had even begun. Yet the most important clue of all was still hidden, waiting to be found. Months went by. The case grew colder. The man was buried without a name, his face preserved in a plaster death mask, in the faint hope that someone might one day recognize him. Then, in April 1949, a pathologist re-examining the man's clothing made a remarkable discovery. Hidden deep within a tiny stitched-up fob pocket in the man's trousers was a tightly rolled piece of paper. It was so small and well hidden that it had been missed during the initial searches. When they carefully unrolled it, they found two words printed in an elegant, stylized font: Tamám Shud. Librarians at the public library were consulted, and they quickly identified the source. The phrase was from a collection of Persian poems called the Rubáiyát of Omar Khayyám. The words are the final ones in the book, and they mean ended or finished. Was this a suicide note? A final poetic farewell? The police launched a nationwide appeal, asking the public if anyone had a copy of the Rubáiyát with the final page torn out. The appeal was a long shot, but it worked. Shortly after, a local man came forward with something extraordinary. He told police that around the time the body was discovered, he had found a rare edition of the Rubáiyát in the back seat of his unlocked car, which he had parked near Somerton Beach. He hadn't thought much of it at the time, but after seeing the news appeal, he checked the book. The last page, containing the words Tamám Shud, had been torn out. The scrap from the dead man's pocket was a perfect match. The case had just taken another strange and unexpected turn. This book didn't just solve one mystery. It opened up several more. On the back page, written faintly in pencil, were 5 lines of capital letters that looked like some kind of code. The second line was struck through, adding to the confusion. It was a jumble of letters like Rigoa Babd and MLIAOI. It looked like a secret message, but what did it say, and who was it for? Cryptographers from the Australian Department of Defence, as well as amateur sleuths around the world, have been studying it for decades, but it has never been conclusively deciphered. But that wasn't all. Also written in the book was a phone number, an unlisted number. Police traced it to a young woman, a nurse who lived just a short walk from Somerton Beach. Her name was Jessica Thompson, though she was often known as Jo. When investigators showed her the plaster cast of the Somerton man's face, her reaction was telling. One detective later described her as being completely taken aback, to the point of giving the appearance that she was about to faint. She looked at the cast, her face pale, and seemed deeply shocked. But when questioned, she denied knowing the man. She also denied knowing why her phone number would be in a book connected to him. She seemed evasive, and police felt she was holding something back, but they had no evidence to press her further. She claimed that she had once owned a copy of the Rubáiyát but had given it to an army lieutenant named Alfred Boxall during World War II. For a moment, it seemed like a breakthrough. Had they finally found their man? Police located Alfred Boxall, alive and well, and he still had the copy of the Rubáiyát that Jessica had given him with the Tamám Shud page still intact. The dead man was not Alfred Boxall, so who was he? And what was his connection to the nurse? Over the years, with so few facts to go on, many theories have emerged to explain this bizarre case. The first and most obvious theory is suicide. The phrase, "it is finished," along with the peaceful way he was found, suggests a man who chose to end his own life. The autopsy revealed severe congestion in his stomach and liver, which is consistent with poisoning. Yet, exhaustive toxicology tests found no trace of any known poison. If he did take his own life, he used a substance so rare and fast-acting that it left no evidence behind. This raises the question, where would a man in 1948 get such a substance? This leads to the second major theory, espionage. The case happened at the very beginning of the Cold War. Australia was a close ally of Britain and the United States, and there was a sensitive military rocket testing range not far from Adelaide. A mysterious, untraceable man, a secret code, an undetectable poison, it all sounds like something straight out of a spy novel. Was the Somerton man a secret agent? Who was either silenced by his enemies or took his own life after his mission was compromised? The indecipherable code adds weight to this theory. Intelligence agencies from around the world have reportedly been asked about the case, but none have ever claimed him as one of their own. If he was a spy, his secrets died with him. A third theory circles back to the nurse, Jessica Thompson. Some believe the answer isn't about international espionage, but a personal tragedy. Was the Somerton man a former lover, perhaps the father of her son? For years, people noted the striking physical similarities between the Somerton man's features and those of her son, Robin. Both had the same distinctive ear and teeth structure. Jessica herself once told an interviewer that the mystery was more complicated than the police could imagine, and that the man's identity was known to people beyond the police force. She took her secrets to the grave in 2007. Her daughter believes that her mother was a Russian spy and was romantically involved with the Somerton man, but there is no proof. Was it a story of lost love, a forbidden relationship that ended in tragedy on a lonely beach? For over 7 decades, the Somerton man remained a complete unknown. He was a face in a plaster mask, a set of unusual physical features like his calf muscles, which were high and developed like a ballet dancer's and nothing more. He was buried under a simple headstone that read, "Here lies the unknown man who was found at Somerton Beach." But in 2022, after years of legal battles, researchers were finally given permission to exhume the body and conduct advanced DNA analysis on hairs found trapped in the plaster mask. A breakthrough finally came. A professor named Derek Abbott, who had dedicated years to the case, successfully used forensic genealogy to trace the man's family tree. He identified him as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker born in Melbourne in 1905. He was a man who had a wife he had separated from, a man who liked betting on horses and writing poetry. Finally, the Somerton man had a name, but solving his identity has only deepened the mystery. Now that we know who he was, the questions have become even more urgent. Why did Carl Webb, an engineer from Melbourne, travel to Adelaide? Why did he carefully remove every label from his clothing and erase his own identity? What did that baffling code, found in the back of the book, really mean? And most importantly of all, how did he die? We have a name, but we still don't have the story. The Tamám Shud case remains a haunting puzzle, a strange meeting point of poetry, code-breaking, and human tragedy. A man is found on a beach with a scrap of paper in his pocket that reads, "It is finished." But perhaps the most unsettling truth is this. Even after identifying him, even after more than 70 years of investigation, the story of Carl Charles Webb is far from over. It may never truly be finished at all. Thanks for watching. If you're fascinated by unsolved mysteries like this one, be sure to subscribe for more stories from the strange side of history.